Okay, we are recording. Once upon a time, in a beautiful New England hamlet not far from us here in Winter Haven, was a girl named Jenny. She was like all other girls her age, except for the green ribbon around her neck. Welcome to Green Ribbon Gal Gab, a weekly podcast where I explore the mystery of Jenny and find out what really happened to her all those years ago. At school, Jenny met a boy named Alfred. Alfred had a crush on Jenny, and Jenny had a crush on Alfred. Fuck Alfred. Alfred was always asking why she wore that green ribbon. "I cannot tell you," Jenny would reply. Jenny loathed contractions. Alfred is a fragile male of the species who hated the independence of Jenny and her demand for privacy. Poor Alfred. Jenny and Alfred fell in love and got married. Boring, but inevitable. On their wedding night, Alfred said, "I must know why you wear that green ribbon." "No," said Jenny, "not until it is time." Jenny is healthy, courteous, communicative. Jenny sets limits. It is so refreshing to see a woman assert herself, particularly in a book of horror stories meant to teach children to read. Well, it is not just a story. It is a record of events. It is a historical document. It is evidence. 60 years passed. Alfred would ask about the ribbon, and Jenny would tell him, "It is not time yet." Jenny became ill. The doctor informed her she would not live through the night. Alfred knelt by her side, his teardrops falling on her many blankets, because for all his curiosity, Alfred did love Jenny very much. "I will tell you about the ribbon," said Jenny, "but you have to do one thing for me." Alfred kissed Jenny, then untied the green ribbon around her neck, and then her head fell off. A moment of silence for Jenny. People think it is folklore, although I cannot imagine why. They scream at horror, then turn to the next page, to the next story. That insatiable desire to be scared. But what really happened to Jenny? What was that mysterious illness that claimed her life? Each week, I will unpack the mystery of Jenny through all my research conducted within the Department of Occult Sciences here at the Winter Haven University. Are you out there, Jenny? Are you listening? This is all for you. I want to know what happened to the real Jenny. Do not you? No. No, that cannot be the ending. I want to know what happened to the real Jenny. Will you join me? Fine for now. That can change for next week. End of episode. Whew, fuck, I nailed that. Wait, no. No, that cannot be the ending. End with an original poem. Much stronger. How freeing it is to die, to throw my hands up above my head and succumb to death. Perfect. We all pitch in where we can. These are unprecedented times, and in my experience, it is easier to blend in when one is being helpful than not. Today, I'm overseeing the Little Cafe at Winter Haven. That is the name of the shop, not a term of endearment. Red and cream color marble floors, heavy wooden furniture fit for a castle, as if they acquired the pieces at some medieval estate sale. Excellent use of school funds, and I cannot even get a budget approved for second-hand crystals. The weight of the furniture is not about aesthetics. It is to do with theft prevention. Last week, a precocious sophomore smuggled an entire 8-piece dining set into his dorm all the way from the cafeteria. Once apprehended by school officials, I asked if I could interview him, as it was a very slow week for Jenny-related developments. And the school offered to lessen his punishment if he performed acts of penance. He agreed if I called him Mr. X. Mr. X, I said, I understand wanting a nice table for your dormitory, but why 8 chairs? For the ghosts, he said. He was having me on because I teach the occult. An office cluttered with incense, bergamot candles, patchouli bath bombs, and a hand-me-down bottle of cooking sherry that once belonged to a witchy aunt of a friend. Do you know Jenny? I asked. From English 201? He replied. No, the green ribbon, I said. He was not familiar, but as I said earlier, the story of Jenny was used to teach children to read, and Mr. X came to Winter Haven on a golf scholarship. The furniture in the little cafe is beautiful, but I enjoy it more when I'm not behind the counter. I am in the role of supervisor, an altogether archaic position. Why cannot the students manage themselves? And despite my role of authority, earned or not, I am still victim to over-caffeinated outbursts when a chemistry major shouts, "You're out of oat milk, lady!" Vulgar. I teach sciences too. Mysticism. I do not understand why I am not met with the same veneration which is afforded to Mr. Spaulding, who heads up the physics department. I have a doctorate, or will, when I appeal my thesis decision. Jenny, the lengths to which I go to find you. I do not blame you, Jenny. I'm sorry if that came out wrong. Last year, I filled in for Mr. Baskin while he was on sabbatical. Gout. And I did such a wonderful job that Mrs. Vandry offered me a position as an associate adjunct professor, which means I get to teach my first solo class. Adjunct professors can teach no more than 2 classes. And since I was only teaching 1, Mrs. Vandry asked if I would mind overseeing the little cafe. No, not at all, Jenny, I said. Let's keep this formal, she said. You call me Mrs. Vandry, and I'll call you Agnes. Yes, Mrs. Vandry. The frenzy is different today. Students and teachers run amok in equal numbers. Some people are wearing gloves, while others bump elbows as a display of affection. I have hardly refilled the oat milk before the soy is out. No one ever touches the regular, but we put it in the largest jug. Above my pay grade, I say. I am just the supervisor. The manager comes in on Thursdays. Mrs. Vandry is next in line for a coffee. She says, "The usual, please, Agnes." And we chat while I make her a coffee. I know she has an off-brand Keurig in her office, and yet she makes a special point to come and visit me. We get on fine. "It's going to be bad," she says. "It is," I say. Ugh, contractions. I shudder. Grammatical heroin ravages the whole population, merciless and does not discriminate. "I bet you they'll shut down the school by the end of the day," she says. "But who will look after things around here?" I say. She smirks at me, the glint in her eyes, that funny look. They all give me that look from time to time. Perks of being a weirdo. Endless confirmation and the eye sockets of stuck-up faculty heads. She throws some change into the tip jar that I split among the employees. They all think I'm a fool for not taking what they call my share. But to accept tips as a supervisor is just unprofessional. Someone knocks over the sugar arrangement. 3 hours hard work ruined. "Better clean that up," says Mrs. Vandry. I go where I am needed. I came by campus a few days ago. I left a little book of scratches, my little notes behind the cafe counter, and I had to have them. Planning the episode for next week, I walked around the place, checking in, went to what would have been my classroom, room 117. Unremarkable number, but I thought I could do something with it. I open the door, stand behind the podium. It is nice to imagine what it would have been like. The entire university switched to remote learning almost immediately. And it was not the mess you might have seen at some lesser institutions. Winter Haven was so prepared for the world of the pandemic, it was almost as if the administration knew ahead of time. Unfortunately, my class was not deemed essential. After my classroom visit, I go to the library. I figure I might as well check out a few books. I log onto the computer belonging to Mr. Jeffries, and I sign out the books under my name. It is fine that I am here. I have keys. I sit down on one of the reading chairs, plush maroon cushions. I crack open the book and my scratches because you never know when you might get an idea. And no sooner am I prepared to let my mind run wild, I fall asleep. I wake a few hours later. It is dark outside, but what does that matter? I open a few windows, turn on some lights around here, a couple desk lamps, some overhead fluorescents. I did need a nap. I have not liked sleeping at home since Jenny died. Sister. It was awful. The night before my thesis defense, she collapsed on a secondhand rug we bought from Vermont. We are both horrid impulse shoppers. Our punishment is that we have to live with our purchases forever. Jenny screamed until she swallowed her own tongue. I did all I could for her. I called the ambulance. I still made it to my colloquium the next day. I had not slept a wink, but what was I to do? The coroner said she did not swallow her own tongue. Actually, he said she didn't, but I will not dwell on his contractions. His unpleasant profession benefits from brevity. Jenny did swallow her own tongue, I say. I know because I watched her do it. He produces a clear plastic bag. An evidence bag, my lay magician. And inside the bag, a green ribbon. One of yours? He asks. I touch my neck, press my palm to my ribbon. It could not be. Not one of my ribbons, not Jenny. I'll have to notify the police, he says. There's a bit of rogue tissue on his face that makes receiving this information that much more painful. He must have just blown his nose, but even still, he could have checked a mirror before coming out to me. What do? Do I tell him? Or do I pretend there's nothing out of the ordinary? Why'd you take so long to call 911? He asks. I miss my sister every day. That was 3 years ago. I know if I venture into the campus store, they will have blankets and some pillows emblazoned with the Winter Haven coat of arms. I do not know how to work the campus store computer, so I leave a note listing everything I have taken and promising that I will pay it back in due time. And in case there is any question as to where to find me, I write Agnes Farber, associate adjunct, new line, supervisor, the little cafe. Once back in the library, I push 2 of the reading chairs together and have a proper rest. There was a couch, but I find what the students do on the couch to be unsavory. Nothing unbecoming ever happens on a reading chair. The next morning, I have to see about food, so I go to the little cafe, almost as if it was a regular shift. I scoop a bucket of ice from the basement in case I want a cold coffee drink. Although I rarely drink coffee, I find it causes addiction more often than it brings about epiphanies. The walk-in cooler smells something wicked. I sort through the expired milk and creamers, but the eggs are fine and so is the cheese. Dry storage is not the horror show it might have been. One mouse, polite enough, I call him Gregory. He goes his way, I go mine, carrying a loaf of bread and some ketchup. I cook myself up a sandwich and then head back to the library. I keep all the lights on because I do plan on going back to the little cafe to tidy up. And since I will not want an egg and cheese sandwich with ketchup for every meal, I do have to plan to go back to the store in the evening. My sister was not the first. I was on a hike with my best friend Jenny. We were 15 and spent most of our time taking spooky walks in the woods. We would chant and cast spells and call spirits. Jenny and I had a respectful relationship of witches. This was not some slumber party where we burned unpurified sage from Walmart and watched The Bachelor. This particular ritual called for one of us to relinquish her sight. Give me your ribbon, said Jenny. I shook my head. She cannot have the one around my neck. I only remove this ribbon while I am bathing. But I do carry a spare in case of accidents, so I produce that ribbon for Jenny. Will you blindfold me? She asks. This ritual calls for complete trust. I am her best friend. So once I fastened the ribbon around her eyes, I began reading our spell. I got so caught up in what I was doing. Jenny wandered off. She was always so impatient. The woods were dark, and such in a rush was I that I did not grab my flashlight as I chased after her. I was too late. I saw her, sprawled out in a ravine, her arms and legs performing a macabre salute in every direction. I cried beside her body all night. I held her hand, and she squeezed mine, for a time. Before the cavalry arrived, I undid her ribbon and returned it to the pocket of my jacket. She would have wanted me to have it back. I will have to bring my recording equipment here. The green ribbon is not just a story for children. In some interpretations, the story is a cautionary tale for sex workers. It was common for these ladies of the evening to wear a ribbon around their necks to signify their profession. I'm thankful most people in this town are not well read enough to know about that, because I believe they would be unduly cruel to me for my ribbon. The ribbon is also said to be a symbol for the past of the woman and the inability of her husband to cope with not knowing about it. Some versions show the husband, remember Alfred, cutting off the ribbon while she is sleeping. For me, the only true version involves Jenny giving the consent for Alfred to untie the ribbon. Ribbons round the neck became fashionable among the morbid, aristocratic youth in Paris. They would host soirees called Les Bals des Victimes, where they would emulate victims of the guillotine. I have a whole lesson surrounding the victim balls. Ah well, there's always next fall. Are you here, Jenny? Have you come to Winter Haven? Until next time, dear listeners. Until next time. I go shopping for groceries about once every 9 days. 9 is a number with magical properties, but I am not so deluded as to associate it with coupons and Beyond Meat. My provisions in the little cafe have run out faster than I anticipated, so now I am on my own. I will have to replace everything I consumed, but I do plan to. I take meticulous notes. Every slice of American, every dollop of ketchup. The school bleeds money, so they do not need me to reimburse them. And they probably will not ask, but I must live up to a standard. I am not a vagrant. I am not a squatter. I am faculty. It is quiet here at night, but I play music. There is as much Kate Bush as you would expect. All of us who are spooky girls are, in many ways, exactly the same. It is funny to think that we exist in a world known as weirdos. I do not think we are weirdos. We are simply spread out. I have not dated anyone in 6 months. While covering for Mr. Baskin, it was medieval mysticism and strange occurrences. Not my strong subject, but I can hold my own with anything AD. I met a student who was, well, she took an interest in the material. She stayed after class. She came to office hours. Before I knew it, I was hosting something like a salon. But it was always just us, just me and Jenny. Finally, I said to her, since it is just you and me, why should we spend our time in this stuffy old office? Where shall we go? To my house. Jenny wanted to keep our relationship private, so no one, not even her roommate, knew where Jenny went. One night we sat together in the kitchen nook, elbows touching, heads in books. "I can't see you anymore," she said. I nodded. The semester is coming to an end. "That's not what I mean," she said. Have some tea. Poor Jenny. Her allergies had been bothering her. She started to sneeze and she did not stop. 20 or so sneezes erupted from her and she collapsed on chipped linoleum floor. My sister and I had always talked about replacing but never getting around to it. I bent down to Jenny. In her hand, she clutched a green ribbon. Her soft, sweet hands. Oh well. I was always meant to look over the school. I am the trusted guardian. "What the fuck are you doing here?" says a voice in the dark. I spin around. Mrs. Vandry advances upon my library fort. "I am just looking after things," I say. "Who told you to do that?" "I am the supervisor of the little cafe," I tell her. "I have responsibilities." "You're an hourly nobody is what you are," says Mrs. Vandry. "Jenny, please," I say. "You don't get to call me that. I am Mrs. Vandry to you. Now pack up your things and I'm calling the police." I barricade myself in the library office. Mr. Jeffries does not have much in here, except some books. Banned some years and not others, depending on the shifting whims of the trustee board. She pounds the door and tells me to open this instant. I have done nothing wrong. I was doing my part. Helping out. I have always gone where I was needed. The banging stops. "Aggie," says a voice. I know that voice. I know. "Aggie, you can come out now. It is all right." I unlock the door and step out. Jenny is waiting for me. She is not the Jenny I had seen in pictures. Not young nor old, but pristine. Perfectly preserved, glowing in the library darkness. "But where's Mrs. Vandry?" I ask. "Later," she says. She glides down a stack of books. I follow close behind. My shoes click on the tiled floors, but then become softer. Tile turns to dirt, turns to ground. Now we traverse a briar patch of books. And just beyond the mystery section, A small cemetery. A black iron fence encircles the graveyard, filled with uneven tombstones dug into blessed earth. I hear Mrs. Vandry scream. "Go forward," says Jenny. I see my sister in the distance. She cowers behind a large stone grave emblazoned with the Farber name on it. Her body is shaking. "You can come out," I tell her. My best friend makes a run for it. She crosses the graveyard to the fence and tries to climb over it, but she is too small. Was she always so little? She tries to scream, but no sound comes out. "I will not hurt you," I say. Suddenly my girlfriend runs past me and she trips over a vase of rotting flowers. She claws at the earth to get to her feet. "Can I hold you?" I ask. She finds my sister and my friend and they hug each other. They back away from me. They look at me with fear and with hate. Eyes of flower petals. My Jenny girls. "I will be your stem," I say. "I will lift you up and I will make you known." "This way," says Jenny. She goes back the way we came, veers right, down another aisle. I look back towards the cemetery, but it is gone. Wall again and tiled floors. Down the aisle, I see a guillotine made of crystal. "So you want to be a real Jenny?" "More than anything in this small-minded world," I tell her. "Lie down, Aggie," she commands. "Okay. But first, what is it?" "Untie your ribbon." I untie the ribbon from my neck. And Jenny releases the guillotine. I only have a few minutes before my next class. When Mrs. Vandry disappeared into the night, the administration asked me to take over her lessons. I teach Intro to the Occult on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Manners and Mysticism on Friday evenings. It is a longer class, so we only meet once a week. The Dean of Academic Affairs is so impressed with my work, he wrote me a few days ago asking, why has it taken this long for me to be noticed? I play modesty as well as chess, and so, in between bouts of graciousness, I tell him about the course I want to teach on Jenny, and he is going to get it approved for the fall semester. He thinks we will all be back in the classroom come September, but he also lets slip that he thinks the pandemic is a hoax, so I choose my words carefully. I hope they locate Mrs. Vandry. Where could she have gone? Anyway, the Jenny course is creating quite the buzz among the students. There is an unofficial wait list, or so they tell me, those in higher seats than my own. I never believed in class structures at school, but here we are, elite academia. Sometimes I miss the little cafe, but the new supervisor they brought in is very special to me. And we, well, my course load is such that keeping up with the podcast has been harder and harder. But I have a special guest this week, Alvin Schwartz, author of In a Dark, Dark Room and Other Scary Stories. If it was not for Alvin, I might never have learned about Jenny at all. No, I cannot think like that. After this class meets, I will swing by the little cafe to fetch Jenny. They do take out drinks and light fare for the limited student body that has returned. Half are still remote. I promised Jenny we could get a walk-in before dinner. We have just been so happy together. Me, finally, so terribly, unbearably happy. I could die.